Well, hello, Steiff superfans, as well as doll fans, and welcome to this special program dedicated to Steiff dolls in honor of National Doll Day, which is held annually on June 12th. And this is a day, it's actually in its 35th anniversary in 2021. This is a day to celebrate all things dolls, to give a doll to someone you love, or perhaps someone you'd like to love, and celebrate everything there is about these wonderful creations and communities that they form. So, what I chose to do is to bring something very special to you. I brought a series of Steiff gnome dolls here, and what I'd like to do is to share them with you in a program and explain what makes them so fun and special and really extraordinary. A perfect mix, a perfect match for World Doll Day. So let's get started. This program is called Magical Thinking, Steiff's Prewar Gnome Dolls for World Doll Day on June 12th, 2021, and a few days before and a few days after, of course. Let's get started with a little history about gnomes. Gnomes are mythical creatures, and they've really been beloved by cultures across the world for decades and centuries. Snow White, which was published in 1812 by Grimm's Children and Household Tales, really brought these to the forefront of delightful little creatures that live underground in your garden in all sorts of mysterious places. They were intriguing to the public, especially in the German culture. Gnomes were first named in a 1912 Broadway play. They were not named in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. In the Broadway play, they were named Blick, Flick, Glick, Plick, Snick, Wick, and Quee. In the Disney film of 1937, the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs film that we all know and love, the little gnomes were renamed Doc, Grumpy, Happy, Sleepy, Bashful, Sneezy, and Dopey, which is a little bit more memorable and a little bit more fun. Steiff, of course, has always been interested in popular culture for creating the ideas and inspirations behind items in the product line. And they looked oftentimes to literary characters, popular culture characters, and such. And of course, the whole idea of gnomes being popular culture as garden friends and such, as well in the media, really triggered Steiff to create some darling gnomes at the turn of last century. So, but to avoid trademark infringement, they named their dolls very differently than those that were seen in Broadway or Disney. And those were called Snack, Snick, and Puck, and a couple of others we'll share with you today. So the earliest gnome that Steiff has produced, as far as I can tell, at least on a commercial scale, is this darling little guy named Snack. And Snack was made in 4 sizes ranging from 22 to 50 centimeters from 1911 through 1915. And Snack is probably the rarest gnome, at least the one that I can identify, because it was made for so little time in the product line. This little fellow here, you can see, has this wonderful mohair hat and an upturned nose. And that is a very popular and sort of that's a feature that you see in all the sizes and on all the presentations. If you look at the picture in the middle, you can see he's got these delightful, very small cat-like eyes. They're green with slit pupils, and those were the same eyes that were used on Steiff's cats at the same era. And you can see he's got sort of an unshaven look around his lips. He's got his 5 o'clock shadow and his wonderful, robust beard. He wears a felt little jacket and felt shorts. He would have had little clogs as well, but those have been lost to time. And he has his little leather man purse. Okay, let's take a look at this little guy in person. Be prepared to fall in love. Here he is with his wonderful face that we talked about and his big floppy hat and all the sizes he was produced in. He had this great hat and his little perky nose, his very elaborate eyelashes and beard, his 5 o'clock shadow, and his shorts and belt. Here's his man purse on his belt, and you see it says the word Steiff on it. Very sweet, lovely, and very, very early Steiff dwarf or gnome. Super sweet in honor of World Doll Day. All right. The next gnome I'd like to talk with you about is named Snick 1. His name isn't really Snick 1, it's just Snick, but I call him Snick 1 because there is a second Snick in the line we're going to talk about today, and I just want to keep the two of them separate. So here you see Snick 1. He was made in 4 sizes ranging from 22 to 50 centimeters from 1911 through 1921. You see he was launched the same time that Snack was, but he lasted a little bit longer in the line. And you can see here this darling fellow. He's got his great hat, his pointy hat made out of felt. And it's important to note that that fits on top of his head and is not tucked into his ears, which is a feature of another gnome that we'll talk about today. He also has on his little felt vest, and he's wearing velvet pants and a leather belt and these nice wooden clogs. You can see his very prominent vertical facial seam, which is very typical to Steiffgal production of the time. He's got his little eyes set in eye pockets, his little perky nose, and his little mouth that's sort of dimensional inside of his face, which is formed by seams and clever sewing. And here is this handsome devil for you to see. He wants to say hello, 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 handsome. He's got his great hat. I'd like to show you, look at that great shape of his face, and his hair goes all the way around. That's all. Each hair is placed by hand in his felt head. That's a lot of work, but very effective and very handsome, beautiful. Center seam, eyes in his eye pockets, happy smile. And here you can see he's wearing his felt vest, leather belt, which is not original to him, but he would have had the same one. Pants and these nice clogs. Very sweet. A very handsome guy indeed. And as I had mentioned, his hat comes on and off, and it is not attached to his ears, but you'll see what I mean by that in just a bit. There you go. Beautiful. Snick 1. Now I'd like to talk to you about somebody who's absolutely darling, and perhaps you've seen because he's been in the line for a really long time. This is Puck. And Puck was made in 3 sizes ranging from 20 to 40 centimeters from 1914 through 1941. So he was in the line for a really, really long time. And what does that mean? That means he was really popular, really beloved, and a great part of the product line for many, many years. What you have to know about Puck is that regardless of his size, he also had a bright yellow mohair hat, absolutely darling. And he had these very long white mohair beard, unlike the other guys who had sort of a grayish or colored beard. This is sort of a more long, straight beard. His perky eyes and dimensional nose and mouth, very sweet. He is fully jointed. And I think one of the things that is noticeable or noteworthy about Puck is that because he was in the line for a really long time, I mean, think about it, that's many decades. You will always see him in his yellow hat or a mohair hat, but you will see him in different color clothing combinations. You will see most of the things I'm showing you in slightly different color combinations, but Puck, especially because he was in the line for so many years, maybe in some cases might have a darker blue jacket or a gray jacket or a black jacket or green jacket and different colored pants and such. It just rotated a bit, which is really fun to collect because it's very easy to find Pucks in different clothing and different detailing, but a charming boy nonetheless. And I just wanted to share this advertisement with you. Puck did appear in many, many of Steiff's ads because he was so photogenic and so playful, and he brought all of these things to life. Here he is with a couple of ducks on wheels, and this ad is probably from the 1920s or so, given its decoration and appearance and detailing. So here is my little Puck, and this is not original to him, but he loves his little dachshund, and he takes him everywhere, so I couldn't separate them for this talk, but I'm going to put the dachshund down and have you look at Puck and how precious he is. This is a small size. He's 20 centimeters. You can see his great mohair hat, his happy face. Don't you just want to give him a kiss of the screen? Wonderful mohair beard. He's jointed. Nice little belly full of either mushrooms or a little beer or something. Who knows? And his big, floppy, fun felt feet. This is sweet Puck. Absolutely adorable. And he appeared in a couple of novelties as well, including a rabbit-drawn cart, which was absolutely precious, and a duck-drawn cart. Imagine how sweet that was. He also was in many print advertisements and in many of Steiff's catalogs as just a wonderful little character who brought the brand and anything he was around to life. Now I'm going to talk to you about Snick 2. Now, remember a few minutes ago, we talked about SNCC 1. Well, this is SNCC 2, and we call him SNCC 2 because he was produced later in the line. SNCC 2 was made in 3 sizes ranging from 25 to 43 centimeters from 1927 through 1943. And unlike the first SNCC, he's got a couple of design changes that make him a little bit more contemporary and a little bit more to the times of the 20s. The items in the 20s tended to be a little bit more rounded and a little bit more playful and a little bit more youthful and a little bit softer. And you can see that in SNCC 2 versus SNCC 1. SNCC 2 does not have his 5 o'clock shadow, and he's very sort of endearing and sweet with great facial coloring. The outfits are pretty much similar. He's in a little shirt, a vest with a belt and shorts, and of course those great wooden clogs. But please take a look at his hat. You see it's made of felt, but it has holes on the side where the ears pop through. And that is one sort of simple way of telling SNCC 1 from SNCC 2, although the facial differences also are prominent. And I wanted to share this delightful advertising picture from a 1929 catalog. Here's SNCC playing with his happy friends on some wooden carts and such. What a wonderful picture. As they say, one of each, please. I'm sure you might feel the same as a collector. So prepare to fall in love. Here you go. Here's SNCC 2. Look at his happy face. He's sort of a little bit more youthful, a little less grubby. And I don't mean grubby in a bad way. I mean sort of grubby like I just got out of the gardening way. Sort of a little sweeter, very sweet, wonderful coloring. Again, these wonderful long mohair beards and his head fully outfitted, jointed, his nice big hands, and his perfect clogs. Just a lovely little sweet boy, wonderful seamed face, eye pockets with these really delightful green and black pupil eyes, happy face. Well, hello, handsome. So the last gnomes I'd like to share with you today have a bit of a scandal associated with them, and it wouldn't be an interesting talk without a little bit of scandal. What we have here are 2 gnomes. The one on the left is called Sulphurmate, and he was made in 14 and 25 centimeters from 1933 through 1936. And the one on the right is named Lucky Dog, and he was made in 28 centimeters from 1937 through 1941. And here's the skinny on these guys. So Sulphurmate wasn't really supposed to happen. In the early 1930s, someone brought to Steiff's attention a little logo that belonged to a chain of hotels or motels in Germany. And it was this little fellow. And they said to Steiff, would it be possible for you to design a doll that resembles our logo that we can use for our publicity and marketing and such? And Steiff said, sure, we'll give it a shot. So Steiff came up with this version of their logo, and you can see him here on the left. But the company that approached Steiff to do this project decided they didn't like this doll at all. So they said, you know what, we're not going to proceed with the project. Steiff said, okay, I understand. So they took the prototype and they put it in the Steiff archives. So fast forward a couple of years, and someone was walking through the archives and stumbled across this doll that was sitting in the archives. And I said, oh, this is so cute. I wonder why this wasn't produced. I think we should produce it. So Steiff went on to produce this guy from 1933 through 1936 in these 2 sizes, and it was pretty popular. The person who had approached Steiff to make this doll for them noted that this was in production and felt that this was sort of an infringement on their creative property and such. So they asked Steiff to stop, and Steiff did stop, and they apologized profusely, did not realize the oversight, and they took the doll out of the line. So this doll is sort of like illegal. You're not really supposed to have it. It wasn't really supposed to be produced. But Steiff loved the idea of a gnome at that time. And so you notice in 1937, they came out with a follow-up to Sulphurmate, which is called Lucky Dog. He was made in a really different technique. Sulphurmate has the traditional seamed face. Well, Lucky Dog has a pressed felt face, which is the technology that was being used in the late 30s onward for dolls. Sulphurmate is a little bit similar to Lucky Dog. They both have sort of a mushroom cap, sort of a plain body and floppy arms and big clogs. But the Lucky Dog is just a little less cartoonish and a little bit more to the times of the 30s and 40s than Sulphurmate. And here is Sulphurmate pulling a giant teddy bear. This was a print ad that Steiff had produced in the early 1930s using this wonderful design, wonderful illegal design nonetheless, but just a precious ad nonetheless. And I wanted to show you that the gnomes really were popular all through the first quarter of the 20th century, well into the 30s and early 40s. Here's a catalog page that shows three of the friends we've just talked about. There's Puck, there's Snick 2, of course, because of the date, and the lucky dog that you can see on this catalog from this collateral. All right, are you ready for a treat, a double trouble? These are my double trouble. What we have here to share with you are sulfurmate in the little guy. This is the 14 in the bigger size here. I'll go over the little one with you first. Very sweet. Look at his face. He's got the seamed face. It's traditional. He's wearing his hat with little spots, his floppy arms and round belly, and shoes like clogs, but these come off. This is a simpler design, which is what you started to see in the 30s, mid 30s onward, for simplicity, for production simplicity and material simplicity. One of the things that's really interesting about Silvermate is if you look on the other side of his beard, you can see it's orange tipped. And that orange tipped mohair is sort of prototypical to something you'd see in the late 20s or early 30s when this might have been under consideration for design. So that's very sweet and typical to the arrow. Little ear tag and such. So there's a little guy. And here's the bigger guy. Bigger trouble. Very sweet as well. Very nice side glancing eyes and seamed face. He's got his beard too. You can see the tipping. Just lovely. Just lovely. Shoes come off. Floppy body. There you go. The two troublemakers. So that's what I have for you for World Doll Day. I hope you have a greater appreciation for Steiff's wonderful and little gnomes. Are just fabulous. They're really the highlights of my collection, of my Steiff doll collection, and a perfect way to celebrate World Doll Day in a really big and happy way. So anyway, thank you for joining in. I look forward to speaking with you again soon on a wonderful Steiff topic. Teddy hugs to everyone.